This is my first art level, Moonlit, and this is it remade 1 year later. This journey took over a month and a half and became my greatest project yet. After over 100 hours, I present to you. I spent 100 hours remaking my first art level. Now, back in March, I remembered that my first art level, Moonlit, would be turning 1 year old, as every year at the same time, some of my friends and I go on a big ski holiday together. Anyway, I remembered that I released Moonlit at the end of this very holiday, and so I thought it would be a great time to remake it. As well as this, I already knew that I wanted this to be my greatest level by far. After all, it was my first art level I was remaking, and one of the most significant levels to my creating career, so it had to be my best work yet. There were two problems though. One, I can take up to 3 months to make a level, so there was no way that I could make my best work in only 1 week. Two, I was still making a level at this time, a pale blue dot, which required hours of building a day to make progress on, so I had no time to make 2 projects at once and get them both finished in time. Now, although I was building a pale blue dot, I took a short break to build the intro to Moonshine. Now in Moonlit, it's just a blank screen before a title card appears and abruptly disappears. Now, although the intro was completely auto, in Moonshine, I wanted to make a full part with actual gameplay. I started by making this spike design thing that looks extremely bad, before settling on this block design, which I was actually really proud of. Although it's pretty simple and the same concept is used in a lot of other levels, I actually really like it and think it fits really well. I also decided to add these small segments using this spike design to help the part feel fresh and not repetitive. Anyway, after this, I would add the main focal point of this part, the giant text saying the level name. Now, in the original version, this text looks quite static, so I knew that I wanted to make this text have some more life to it. After brainstorming a few ideas, I decided to make the text pulse to the music, with different letters pulsing at different times, and this ended up working really well. After putting the text in, I also added some pulsing glow to fill in more space, and all I had left to do was make air deco. I knew I didn't want there to be much air deco, as I wanted the background to be visible at all times. I ended up going with these arrows, which I think look really elegant and were a perfect touch the part needed. This intro segment was made in around 3 days, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. After this, I tried to make a couple more block designs for the next part, yet everything I made looked terrible, so I decided to stop trying for now. Anyway, after the short break I took to make the intro to Moonshine, I would get back to work on a pale blue dot, which meant that I would have to put this project on hold. After spending 3 more weeks finishing and uploading a pale blue dot, this allowed me to work on Moonshine again. The first thing I did when I began work on Moonshine again was build this moon. Now in Moonlit, I just used a glowing white circle, yet I knew I actually wanted to build a realistic moon this time. I used a texturing trick to make craters on the moon, in which you can just use the secondary colours for these rock objects and make the first ones invisible. Now, I spent the whole day making this first rendition of the moon, and I thought it looked incredible, yet when I got some feedback from my community tab, I got a lot of helpful tips, telling me to add some more contrast and shading. After a couple more versions of the moon, I landed on this final version, which I was really proud of. Now, I knew that I wanted the transition into the first part to make the text sort of split apart, and for the moon to scale up in the space the text left, with the rest of the intro part moving off to the side of the screen. Now, after about a day of work, I got this, which I was actually pretty pleased with. Now, I was going to keep these stars used in the intro part on the screen, so there was no need to transition those off. Anyway, after I finished the background, it was time to make the block design. Now, although I failed about 3 times to make a good looking block design for this part previously, I actually managed to build this pretty fire block design on the first try. It was inspired by Blee's design in Magic Journey, yet I think I managed to put my own spin on it. Now, I made a post on YouTube about this block, and you guys once again gave me a lot of helpful feedback, which allowed me to make the block go from this to this. Anyway, after this, there were still a lot of things that I needed to do, which were to add depth, air deco, and actual gameplay. Anyway, the gameplay wasn't really a priority for this part, just kind of a filler meant to replicate the original feel. Anyway, after making a few additional block variations and putting them around the part, the gameplay was done. Now the next thing I had to do was air deco. The first thing I added were these little blue pillar things, which I first tried on my previous level, a pale blue dot, yet they looked terrible. Anyway, these ones worked a lot better with the level in my opinion, and helped add a lot of variation. The next thing I added were these spinning triangle things that pulsed, inspired by the level Lunar Labyrinth, which I was really proud of and still am now. Anyway, I added these moon things with chains for some depth, and I then added some clouds, purely for the reason that the part felt supremely empty. I was originally going to form it around the moon, yet after 3 days of struggle, it ended up looking awful. Anyway, after some finishing touches, I was finally happy with the part, so it was time to move on to the next one. The first thing I did was make this block design, using a trick from Gallifluff, where you can take certain animated objects and put them on single frame to make them look like rocks. Anyway, after about 10 minutes of fiddling around, I made this block design, and I was once again super proud of it, as I thought it looked great, yet still really reminded me of the original block design. Anyway, I uploaded it to the community tab, and after some more feedback, I upgraded it quite a lot, and the block design was done. Anyway, after that, I made some variations of the block design, and made this straight fly passage like the one in the original. After adding a little bit of air deco and some pulses, the first section of this part was done. Despite it literally being like 2 seconds, I was still pretty proud of the energy it gave off. Anyway, the next part was a UFO part, using the same blocks and air deco. I also reused some of the block designs from the Q part, which I know is kind of lazy, but you can't blame me. I mean, I used the same block design for most of the level in the original. It was originally going to be a part where you just spammed, yet after some feedback from my brilliant playtesters, Hack695 and Sync, I changed it into this UFO part, which still had awful and janky gameplay. Anyway, I then added these indicators and decided to make the moon scale up and to make this thing spin around on it to represent this transition, and the part was done. Now looking at the next part of the original, Moonlit, you can see the Earth is in the background, so I knew I wanted to recreate it. After about a day of work, I got this, and I'm not gonna lie, it looks terrible, yet when covered by the rest of the level, and with a lot of shading, it looks a lot better, even if it is still quite bad. Anyway, I now had a difficult job, which was the block designs. Now, I was completely stuck on this, yet in the middle of a French test, I was hit with a burst of inspiration, so I frantically scribbled down this design. Now, as soon as I got home, I recreated the block design, and it was done. Combined with some block designs from the previous part to give it more variation, and although boring, the gameplay was finished. Now the next step was to add some more actual stuff to this part, as it was looking pretty boring. The first thing I added were these saws, and although these designs are pretty simple, they do the job, and combined with some area moves, they look great. The next thing I added were these star things that I am super proud of, and combined with an area fade, I'm still in shock about how good a simple design can look. Anyway, after making some variations and adding it around the part was done for now, and it was time for the most ambitious and difficult part to make in the whole level.